Hello, everyone. Hello, hardcover hooligans listening to this. Oh, big fart sound from Mac. That's not a soundboard. That is Mac's own mouth.
We're like schlocky radio DJs now.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
And with that, Mac, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you could have a fun little animal on Roshar that has evolved some sort of crustacean features, what animal would you make into a little like crab rock thing?
I mean, frog. Frog's my favorite animal.
You have a little frog rock? A little rock frog?
Little frog rock. You know, I didn't know. So
Man, people really too into frog rock.
I know.
Ribbit Crimson.
I was just
yeah.
I was just about to say that. I say like there's two cats that live in this apartment. Mm-hmm. And I always call them not their correct names, and I often call them Kremling, which I thought I had came up with. And then I realized it was planted subconsciously when I read this forever ago, because I think it's a cute name. So that's my story.
Great. What's a Kremling?
They're like the little bugs or whatever that crawl around.
Oh yeah. So that's my intro question.
Hey, so do you
folks...
think?
Oh,
do you think the world of Roshar was underwater?
I don't know.
Like Atlantis? Like it's like what if Atlantis, but global warming dried up? Reverse global warming sucked up all the oceans.
Maybe. I think it's just the storms and the wind. I think that's really all it is.
Oh, the storms. The Everstorm. We have to unite them, Danilo.
So, everyone, we are reading, as you maybe tell by our allusions and the title of this episode, we are reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. We are returning to our roots, the roots of this podcast, when we started this podcast with Mistborn, and now we are reading the Stormlight Archive. Maybe we just read this one. We'll see. So, Mac, before we get started, I would just like to say I've read this book before.
Yeah.
You have read this book before.
Yeah, the first time.
Ages ago.
Yeah. Yeah, really, feels like a really long time ago.
I think I read it for the first time longer ago than you have. I read it in like 2018, 2019.
Yeah, I think 2020 is when I read it. It was COVID because I was like, I need something to do. Here's a big book.
Now, will you believe this? I believe this book was published in 2012. That makes it 13 years old.
13 years old. It can drive.
Yeah. It can. What can 13-year-olds do? Sign up for social media.
Oh, yeah.
You can sign up for Instagram.
They can be in a pool with their parents after 10 p.m. or whatever at a hotel.
We read sort of half of this book because, based on our first foray into Brandon Sanderson with Mistborn, we did not come out big fans. So we are kind of going to go quickly through these. It will be impossible for us to cover everything, but we will get through the big beats and our thoughts in the first half of this book. Now, I have to say a disclaimer first, Mac.
Yeah.
This book, believe it or not, has somewhat a special place in my life because, which is crazy to say, but just who I am now, because it is like when I was getting back into reading after college, this is like one of the first fun books I read, and I'm like, oh, I do like reading again. And I was, my life sucked at that point, and this book was like one of the only things I enjoyed doing. So,
wow. Then we're back.
So it's rough. And I may have a slightly differing opinion to you about this book. Maybe a little bit.
I'm excited.
With,
you're a truther.
With, perhaps all the caveats in the world. So, just so you know, just
no, that's
based
good
on
to
that.
Know.
So, Mac, before we get into my maybe general opinions about this book, what are your opinions about this book?
This book fucking sucks.
Okay.
It is awful and terrible, but still like an improvement from Mistborn. Not in any of the improvement is the wrong word. For different reasons. than Mistborn is boring and bad. Because this is like... I just am so infuriated reading this book. And he still has, like, sort of infamously... There's a line in this book. There's these jokes that one of the characters say. And there's this sort of infamous one right off the rip where she's like... I think I wrote it down here. If I keep my wits about me, someone has gotten entirely too close with a cudgel. Because somebody's like, if you lose, like, oh, keep your wits about you, young girl. And she's like, if they were about me, somebody hit them out of my head. And it's like, okay. So Brandon is trying to, like, this is his Wheel of Time, literally. There's 10 books. Yep. Like, it was going to be 10 books. He finished the Wheel of Time. This is Brandon Sanderson's Wheel of Time. And the difference between Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson is that Brandon Sanderson sucks and has not lived an interesting enough life to write 10 books of that are about like war and slavery and politics. And so he's like obsessed with this fucking caste system and like slavery. And it's just like, you are a child. It's like a child came up with it.
Yeah, it's like...
It's a child's understanding of slavery. Oh my God.
Well, it's funny because it's technically better than the first one, but it is... Or not the first one, but like than Mistborn.
The first, yeah.
Mistborn was cartoony and bad.
That nobility stuff from...
Just cartoony.
Yeah, he's smartly avoided the trap that he fell into in Mistborn, which was like having Elend be like complicit in the
but he's one of the good ones. Like, they don't have like, at least he doesn't do, oh, but he's one of the good ones. But they also sort of do that.
They do, but at least like Adolin is like an asshole. He's like a cocky, like cocksure asshole, and Dalinar is losing his fucking mind. At least there's like interesting things happening.
Well, I think he's gone one. Listener, we will explain what we're talking about in a second, but I'll just say
you've read it. I'm sure you've read it or you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, they have a whole caste system based on the color of your eyes. If you have light eyes, you're nobility. If you have dark eyes, you're not nobility.
Which means black or brown eyes, correct? Dark eyes.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's like it's
like the lighter your eyes, the more noble you are. I think it's okay. We'll talk about this later because there's this whole like social. It's funny.
Whatever.
It's almost fascinating how Brandon Sanderson tries to do like social commentary.
It's super fucking fascinating.
Well, like it's like he wants to say something about it, but he doesn't understand it fundamentally.
He understands at a basic level that like separating people based on something as silly as eye color or skin color as
is
in
like
real
arbitrary
life is weird and bad. He doesn't understand like the specific evil of racism, like with regard to like the quote unquote science behind it. Like, he doesn't understand like the history of racism in a real world context, so he can't apply a history of fantasy racism to his book. So it comes across as like, what the fuck are we do? Like, what is this?
Or it's like there's no he's like trying to make a point, but it totally ignores like what makes like, say, racism so entrenched in our like world. Like, it seems like he writes all the characters as if someone showed up and said this is silly, they'd be like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, which is not what it is in real life.
No.
But he writes it that way, like no one notices that it's silly because no one's told them, like they haven't realized it.
And he's done something, like he's made it something as trivial as the color of your eyes, which in like the hands of a much better author could have been a very interesting, like, it feels very like a Huxley or like a Orwell being like, and even like the color of their eyes separate them. But in terms of those authors, there's a big difference in it that they're talented and they could make that an interesting separation.
And it's funny because it's sort of like a minor background thing. Like, it's not even part of the point of this book or like interesting. Like, he's just like, okay, my world has cartoon racism and that's just how it is.
Well, and also the big, huge racism of the book, which is the Parshmen and the the treatment of the Parshmen. And I know that it's not revealed what is going on until the end of the book, but I know what's going on, and I don't know if I'll be able to keep that inside. We can get into it, but the Parshmen.
Okay, maybe we can do a little thing at the end, like if someone does want to read at the end of the book, we can at the end of this episode do a quick, like if you don't want to listen to us talk about this book as a whole at the beginning, then okay, but we will get into all that as well. I'm going to say my opinion, which I think it is okay. I think it's fine. Granted, I have my previous experience of reading this book, and this time reading it, I sort of hardcore skimmed it because I sort of remembered everything that happened. I also got absolutely nothing out of it second time. For me, I would say it's fine. If you read it once and enjoyed it, good. That's all you need. Don't just like it's a fun time if you ignore certain things. Sure. I think the weakest part of Brandon Sanderson's writing style are not present, but I think at their most tolerable in this book.
And we'll get into it.
Mainly the sense of humor and how fucking tedious everything is.
Yeah.
So, The Way of Kings. We have a world. The world is Roshar. We'll do big lore, because the most thing that people like about this book, from what I've read online, is the world. People like the world.
I can't imagine liking the world. It sucks and it's boring.
So I'll kind of go talk about the world and everything, and then I'll sort of give an overview of the main characters, and then we'll talk about the plot beats, if that sounds good.
Yeah.
This takes place on a different planet. The planet is called Roshar. The monocontinent,
and not like a different planet, like in our solar system. It's like in a fantasy galaxy.
In the
Cosmere, if you will.
Which is it's a connected universe. The planet is called Roshar. The big monocontinent on the planet is also called Roshar. The series is called the Stormlight Archive because every once in a while these big storms come rolling through across the continent on somewhat regular intervals, like monks find some way to predict it or whatever.
Yeah, I think Kaladin's dad could like predict it even.
It's like a magical storm, and when it passes, it like recharges their money. And so they have these money that have like gems in it, and the gems have like a magical light in it, and after a time they fade, but then when the storm comes through, it like recharges them. And later in the book, in the series, the fact that there's this light that is magical is important. There's also what is maybe the funniest. I feel like it's divisive. It's either the coolest thing in this book or the most cringe and dumb thing in this book, and it is the shard blades and the shard plates.
Yeah.
Which shard blades are giant, big, oversized swords that are as tall as you are, and only certain people can carry them. And if you drop them, they like vanish, but then you can like resummon them with 10 heartbeats, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah. I have no problems with this.
And shard plate is like a mech suit, a magic mech suit, armor suit. And all the nobility have these big swords and these big armor sets.
Well, they all have like the armor sets, at least. Not all of them have the swords.
Mm-hmm. And the swords, you'd think, but hardcover hooligans. Brandon Sanderson is a Mormon. He hates violence. Why would he have big swords? Well, you see, listener.
Do I have news for you?
The sword doesn't cut people's bodies. It severs their soul.
Yep.
So when someone gets cut with one of these shard blades, if they get cut on a limb, the limb like goes dead. It like withers and dies. But there's no blood. If it like cuts someone's like body, their like eyes wither and smoke, and then they're dead. But no blood.
No blood. Don't worry about it.
It like goes through them. It like fuzzes and goes through them.
Yeah.
which is very funny.
It is super funny. I don't understand. Who cares? Like, why?
It's funny because this book is probably the one in the Stormlight Archive that leans the most into the quote-unquote violence, but is still hilariously tame. Like, like little kid, middle school tame.
Yeah, people talk about... Well, and we'll talk about it. People talk about how like the bridge stuff is so violent. I'm like, have you never seen like any media ever? Like, is this your first experience having like a fictional character die? Because this is not like what a lame baby way to be like in the horrors of war. Come on, give me a fucking break.
And then there's these things called the spren. Mac, do you want to explain the spren?
Boy. So the spren. So if you're, I'm sure this is cool if you're 5. The spren are, well, I know what they are because I read 200 pages of the Words of Radiance. But at the beginning of the book, the spren. No. Words of Radiance.
That's right.
When she explains what the spren are. Okay. And then I stopped. And then I'm pretty sure that's the part I got to, and I said, I'm done. So the spren at the beginning of the book. So like if you get when plants grow, little life spren, which are like little like globules of light, like pop out. If you're like nervous, then like fear spren will like pop out around your head. It essentially takes any seriousness at all that could be had and just get rid of that, because every single time there's anything dramatic happening, you have to imagine that there's like a bunch of little like like little guys like running around being like wow. Like I don't understand it at all. It's so stupid.
And it's like anytime, like if people are angry, they're like there's anger spren, but also it's like not emotions. It's also like when people like eat, glory there's like spren. Food spren, or like or
like if you kill something, glory spren happens. If you're like like okay,
it's like a level. It's like here's your like glory your XP from your.
Well, the whole fucking Shattered Plains is like the biggest, most boring MMO of all time. Like it's so stupid. There's like timed world events where people compete for loot drops. It's so stupid.
I didn't think about that. That's so funny. And everyone has their little like raiding party, and they have to go out. They have to plan for days about how to get the loot. Oh man. Do you think that is unconscious on his part? That it's like basically because
he's a big fucking loser nerd.
I think everything he does, I think, is unconsciously something else. Like I don't think he's ever had like a original idea.
No, because he's like he writes like a video game. Like I'm not sure if you people are playing video games, but they're not exactly the pinnacle of writing. Like video game, like every character in this book is like an NPC from like an RPG from 2007. Like it is, and also like it's not a good story. Like if you do a Dark Souls level, if you like narrated what you did, that doesn't make it a story. I know.
I turned left and then I dodged the boulder and then I met a guy and he gave me a flask and then I ran into a room.
Who's been more exact with like, I feel like every character, POV characters, like footsteps are tracked. Like it's so like, and he walked right here and there was light there and he could see, and then he bent down and then he opened the door. It's like you can just say he went in the place. Like I don't need all this bullshit.
If he writes that, there's nothing else he has to write about.
I know.
There's nothing else left.
It's so frustrating.
We'll talk more about that, about how tedious all this is when we go through the plot. We have some main characters. We have Kaladin, who's our main point of view character for this book.
Yes.
He is a depressed guy who's good at fighting and getting people to be a unit.
Yep.
And that's that's him. We also have Shallan, who she's a woman. And her thing is her like father died, but no one knows about it, and they're in massive debt, so she is like on a quest to like help her family.
Her plan is so
somehow.
Her plan is so stupid.
Okay, we'll get to it. She has red hair and she's good at drawing, which gave me serious A Court of Thorns and Roses flashback. Do you remember that? When she's like,
of course I remember
the
that.
fairy's blood was red, a color I could never capture. She has the same thing. She's like,
That's
if
awesome.
only I could draw this city.
She's like supernaturally good at drawing. She's like literally
Almost magically good at drawing.
Yeah.
Interesting. We have Dalinar, who is the brother of the former king, and now the former king died in the prologue, was murdered in the prologue, and now he is the uncle to the king of Alethkar, which is the country that we are mainly following, whose nobility we're mainly following. They're sort of the most powerful power on this continent because they have all the shard blades and the shard plates, and which is basically they have the nukes because they can have a guy go in and like slaughter a whole army if they need to. We also smaller POV character who's my favorite, but becomes less my favorite as the series goes on, as is true with almost everything that Brandon Sanderson writes, is Seth. And it's funny his name is Seth, but he has a Z. It's spelled S-Z-E-T-H. That makes
Seth's
it fantasy.
son Villano. Yes, he is he is far and away the most interesting character in this book because he has the least amount of time to be ruined by Brandon Sanderson's writing.
And it's also funny because then we have that same criticism with Mistborn, whereas like we thought like, oh, these characters are sort of cool. Like we sort of liked Ellen until it became a POV character, and then we're like, oh no. And I had that same issue with Seth in the later books when he becomes more of like a point of view character. You're like, oh no, I'm sure this happens.
I can't imagine a universe in where these characters like hang out and plan stuff. I'm not interested in that. Like Kaladin and Seth having a conversation.
They do.
Like I don't care about that at all.
But you don't want to hear about people plan things and then they do it and it's according to plan.
I'm done with that.
And then there's one little twist, but actually it's okay and everything.
It's fine.
So that's sort of our main cast. We'll talk about who's relevant later. This book, let's get into the plot. This book has like 4 prologues.
Yeah, it does.
There's
18 quadrillion billion flashbacks and cutaways and
man, the flash. Oh, I forgot how many flashbacks there were because Kaladin. The scheme for every series in the book is that each book is primarily focused on the flashbacks of one character, and this is like Kaladin's flashback book.
And he has the most generic, like. He keeps talking about, like, he was betrayed, and you're like, oh my god, how was he betrayed? Whatever is the first idea you have about how he was betrayed, that is why. It is, like, so basic.
But, okay, prologue first. There's these, like, 10 knights, and they're fighting things.
I love this. Can I just say this? This prologue is awesome.
It's pretty badass, because then you're like, oh, what is this? What's happening? And then you don't know. And then it says 5,000 years later. I love that shit.
Yeah.
There's like 10 knights and they're like fighting and they've been fighting for forever, but they're
playing a roguelike game. They literally are. And they keep respawning and having to like do the roguelike dungeon again.
But when they're done respawning, they go to this horrible place where they're tortured. And so they like don't want to be done fighting, but they also hate fighting.
If you turned off the Binding of Isaac on your computer, like a man would like stab you in the gut 18 million times. You have to keep playing.
So it's like, do you keep playing this game or do you want to get stabbed a billion times?
Yeah.
But they're they call it like the Desolations or whatever. They're like fighting back the Desolations. Yeah. But then the big thing that happens at the end of this is like the point of view guy looks up on the hill and there's 8 swords or whatever stuck in the ground, and like they're abandoning the Oath Pact. We don't know what this is yet.
Yeah.
And they're leaving one guy there to like do all the fighting because they also have a sense like, okay, we can't do this anymore, but also the reason we're doing this is if we stop doing it, something bad's going to happen. Like we're keeping something at bay. We don't know. Yeah. And they're like, okay, we're going to leave one guy.
And like the people view them as gods, but really they're some sort. I mean, maybe they are, but like they have this terrible job of defending this place from this evil.
And they're like, man, God help that guy who we left to do this by himself. Bye. And then it's 5,000 years later. Next prologue, we have Seth. He's wearing
this is
white.
Good too, except for one part which I will cover.
This is our magic tutorial.
Yes. That's the part that sucks.
I forgot how fucking tedious it is, but it is Seth. He's wearing white. He's there
Conceptually, it's very cool.
Yes. He's there to assassinate King Gavilar, who is the king of Alethkar. A lot of R's,
yes,
so you got to keep it straight. And it's pretty cool. It's like a classic Brandon Sanderson action scene. He's going through a room. It's a video game level.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain?
It's literally like Dishonored, like the video game Dishonored, if you could, like. So he is he has been tasked. So King Galavar, whatever, Gavilar,
yeah.
Vav Travelar has signed this deal. He signed the new deal with this group of people called the Parshendi, and the Parshendi are like they're like a they're like a hang on. Before I say this, I want to look it up.
They're like so there's this so far everyone is a human that we know.
Yeah.
Except all these people have like these slaves called Parshmen, and they're like very docile and like sort of mute, and they're like have red skin, and they have these like sometimes black patterning, like sort of marble patterning or like white marble patterning. And just for as long as recorded time is, they've been these like sort of humanoid creatures who they use for slave labor, and the Parshmen seem fine with it.
And
big question mark.
Yeah, and their cousin race is like this Parshendi, who the book presents them as like what a I find them. I don't know how to feel about them. I feel like they are presented in the book as the noble savage archetype, and I don't know. Like, I haven't read this series. Like, aside from, like I said, this book and maybe a fourth of the next one. And I don't know if that gets expounded upon, but the way they are represented is really like, what if Native Americans, during the colonization of the what would become the United States of America, hired an assassin to kill, like the guy who signed the deal in the first place.
Well, and the Parshendi are like a group of these that look like these Parshmen, this slave class that exists, who like seems different than them but also looks sort of the same and can like, talk and like communicate with them and fight and everything. And so that group has hired Seth to kill this king, and
they have like black skin. Like black marbled skin.
Red marble.
Yeah.
I think it's like red with like black marbling or red marbling. It is sort of also Native Americans, like their red skin, really.
Yeah, I know. And it's just, he had a character named Spook who spoke street slang. Like, I am in no position to give Brandon Sanderson the benefit of the doubt about anything ever. So I just like instantly when the Parshendi are introduced, I'm like, whoa. Okay,
I think that's also like, again, we talk about like absolutely no reflection on like unconscious influence, and like I think that is 100% what this is too. And I think based on the revelations in later books with the Parshmen and the Parshendi, it's even more interesting when you consider that he's a Mormon. So
yeah.
Because Mormonism has this, complicated. I mean, complicated is putting it very lightly. Relationship with the Native Americans.
Yes.
Anyway,
and I sorry, I just say like, there's a lot of people like online who have drawn that comparison between the Native Americans and the Parshendi, but I want to, if we're giving Brandon Sanderson the benefit of the doubt, throughout human history, there have been 18 billion different places colonized by this like ruling class kingdom archetype, which is happening in England, fantasy England. I know that it's like fantasy Asia or whatever, but like the predominant ruling class throughout history has been Europe, and they've irrevocably fucked up the world. So that's what's happening here. It's like happening again, except this time they're like, actually, fuck this, we're gonna kill the king. And so they hire this cool dude, and they have him wear the brightest clothes of all time to do it.
And this is where it's like the magic tutorial. He's going through the palace trying to find the king and kill him. He has a shard blade. And now it's like a magic tutorial, which is
you can literally see the prompts pop up on the screen. Like, it's crazy.
Which I forgot how fucking tedious this is. It's because, like, just say he, like, floated on the ceiling. Like, it's like there's like it's like a whole paragraph to explain that, like, oh, he can change gravity so he can walk on the ceiling like it's the floor. Like, that takes one sentence to say. He can do that to the wall. He can do that to himself. And can do that to other people and things. Like, I get it. Like, he made the chandelier fall down on them. Like, just say that. I don't know. It'd be sort of more interesting if, like, oh, this guy has magic powers. What else can he do? Rather than, like, this is the first thing he can do. Watch him do it. This is the second thing he can do. Watch him do it. Also, there's this exception. Here's the third thing he can do. And watch him do it. And here's this other exception. Wow, he got through that room.
Yeah.
And that's the whole chapter, basically.
And then there's no blood. Except for one part, he, like, has a guy fall on his spear, but otherwise he's using his magic sword.
But he kills the king. And also it's funny because for plot reasons, he has to, like, the Gavilar has to have some last words that get conveyed onto Dalinar, but also Dalinar isn't there, but also Gavilar is dying, so he has to, like, find some way to convey it. And so apparently he's made a balcony fall down in the main palace, and he has a sword, and there's a ton of alarms going on, but Seth has so much time that he's able to write out this extremely long sentence in the king's blood to be like, these are his last words, because last words are very important in our culture.
Yeah.
I thought it's very dude, you want him to say this thing, but this is so, like, improbable. Like, just think how long it would take for you with your finger in blood to write one word, let alone what's the full. I just want to write what's the full sentence, and think about how long it would take this to write in blood after you've blown up a building, and see if you have enough time before someone comes and tries to arrest you. Brother, you must find the most important words a man can say. Not only is it a long sentence, but it's also deliberately vague. I feel like if you had enough time, you could be more specific, but there'd be no plot then.
Yeah, this is not fucking Twin Peaks. This is just a dude, king dying, just say what you fucking mean to say.
Anyway, then we get into... Now it sort of becomes Kaladin town. It's all his point of view. He's a slave now, based on something that happened in the past. We really don't know what.
No, we get the other prologue at the battlefield.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to talk about this? I don't remember this super well.
Yeah, so it's from this little boy's perspective on this battlefield. And he's like, I'm going to get fucking killed on this battlefield. And this guy comes over and he's like, you're in our squad now, buddy. And he goes over to their squad and he's like, everybody in this squad is cool, man. And they're not worried about dying. And they're like, why not? Why aren't we worried about dying? And they see Kaladin Stormblessed, who is like some teenager with a fucking spear, and he just like whoops a bunch of ass. And then they're getting surrounded, and then it hard cuts to him in chains 8 months later as a slave, which is like, oh, I wonder what happened. He was perhaps betrayed by his bright lord. That is what happened. But then he is sold into slavery after he lost this battle.
Yeah, the nobles with the bright eyes are called Bright Lords.
Yeah.
He's sold into slavery. He gets shipped to...
Even though they should be called Light Lords because they're light eyes. They're not called bright eyes.
Shh, Max. It's fantasy. Don't worry about it.
Light Lord! Light Lords, I mean...
I also thought it's funny that he is Kaladin Stormblessed the second we meet him. That's not like a title he earns later throughout the book like you'd think he would. He already has it.
And then later he's like, I'm Kaladin Bridgemen now. It's like, what? You just give yourself these dumbass last names?
I want to say something before I forget.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons why this book is comparatively very solid compared to some of Brandon Sanderson's other works is that this is, I think, the only book he's written that has, like, this is legitimately a second draft of what he first wrote.
Yeah.
Because he talks a lot about
Yeah,
it. The Way of Kings
very
Prime.
famously.
He has, I believe, sold like a leather-bound version of it, which is so cringe. Can you imagine an author selling first drafts of their other books as special editions? That's crazy.
Yeah, that presumably
that's like the depravity.
It would suck. The editor fucking fixed it. Like,
right,
why
he
would
fixed
you
it
want
for
that?
the better book. It's
Yes.
crazy. Like, oh my god. Like, I don't know if you thought, sure, I will give Brandon Sanderson a pass for his merch boxes and all his crazy content creation and whatever. If you have fans, great. But fucking hawking them first drafts of your book, that is just depraved.
Yeah, it's insane.
But if you want to live your life that way, I don't know. You probably
and then donating that money to the LDS.
Yeah,
What a cool guy.
The Mormons got all that money. Crazy. Anyway, I think another part of this, why I enjoyed it the first time I read it, is I did not know he was a Mormon until I read like the third Stormlight book.
Yeah, me neither. I didn't know that until I think you told me when I was reading the first one. And then so it colored my viewpoint at like halfway through this novel, which...
And we say, and for people who are listening to this who have not listened to our Mistborn podcast, I should say, just because an author is of a certain religion does not mean that their books are bad.
See J.R.R. Tolkien.
Right. The comparison we could do, I mean, Sanderson compares himself to Tolkien all the time, so let's compare Sanderson to Tolkien. Tolkien was not, as far as we know, giving 10%. The Tolkien estate did not give 10% of the Lord of the Rings box office to pro-life across America. So if he was, we'd all be having a different conversation. Brandon Sanderson is giving 10% of all money he makes to the Church of Latter-day Saints, a LGBTQ hate group.
Yes.
So we just want to put that out there.
Yes, and as you will, I think, not to say, I'm not one of these fucking people that is like, no, there shouldn't be any sex scenes in movies and TV and books. Fucking grow up. They could serve a purpose, but boy, is this a sexless world. Like, what a terrible place. Like, I just don't, I mean, I know why.
It'd be fine it'd be fine, like, if it was sexless, but like there's nothing else either,
No, right,
like,
there's nothing going on.
Like if people had like people like got along and they were interesting people, like that's fine. They don't have to have sex.
I want to
draw
they're
also
a comparison
not interesting people.
To I kept thinking of Genebacus while I was reading this, and if you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, Genebacus is a big location in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. It's where the first book takes place, and other books, but it you learn a lot less about Genebacus than you do about Roshar. But Genebacus feels like an infinitely more alive and lived in place because like these thought out cultures. And now, to be fair, Stephen Erickson, anthropologist, guy who loves human history, is just drawing on a lot of real life parallels. But I think anybody who ever creates any fantasy world is also doing that. And like Roshar is nothing. Like it is seriously like a World of Warcraft like zone, like leveling zone. Seriously, you could open the map and it would say like Shattered Plains, like 11 to 18. Like, oh, I can level my character 11 to 18 there. Like there's nothing. And he tries. Oh, does he try with their circular forts and their the way it's all arranged? But like, it's not a place.
And it's fascinating because, like, on paper, and yeah, this book is literally on paper. Nice. But like,
astute observation.
Like on paper, it would be interesting. Like, a continent world shaped by these storms. There's the crustacean plants that retract. The storms are regular, but like. Something about, like, I don't know if it's the kind of details, but it's just, like, the more details that you learn, the less, like, interesting or magical it is. And I think Sanderson thinks, or is from that school of thought, that, like, if I just give you more details, you will understand it better. Yeah. Which I don't think, that's not really how books work. Like, it can be how it works, but like it's not. That's not like what the art of writing is.
No.
Like, it's not like, you can talk about the old man in the sea. Guy went in a boat. He went out. He caught up fish, but sharks ate it. He came back. Yep. Like, that's the same information, but it's all about the details you add and what kind you add. There's just no. It's just not artful in any way.
No, because and we've talked about this before, but this world would be so cool if it felt as alien as it's supposed to be. It literally is an alien planet.
Yeah.
Like, not very often in fantasy.
That's what he's trying to do, but it doesn't really work.
Not very often in fantasy, almost never, is it like explicitly a different planet. Like, it's just sort of like this fantasy land, and it's like, could it, like Westeros, for instance? Like, yeah, it's a different planet, but in those books, yeah, and in the books, it's like, people aren't like, you never have cause to question, like, it doesn't feel like an alien world. And, those books are still very good, and it's like fun to be like fantasy Europe, but how cool would it have been if this could have been like so alien and like weird? But he has to explain every little thing, and those things don't exist in our world and are technically alien and weird, but they're not weird the fucking third time the crabs are carrying a carriage and not a horse. It's barely interesting the first time.
It's also like, it's like the over explaining. Like, it's like we talked about the magic system. Like, Brandon Sanderson has never thought of a detail that he has not included.
Right.
If the more I tell them, the more they will understand.
Yeah.
But then the things he doesn't explain, he does on purpose, and then waits, and that's what it's called a reveal, and that's really it. So then, I think one of the reasons I didn't get anything out of this book starting the second time is because anything that's compelling the first time, and Mistborn had the same problem, is like, I don't know what the mystery behind this is, or I don't know what's going to happen. And that's really the only thing propelling you through the books. And he's pretty good at withholding information, like, here's a mystery, here's another puzzle, here's what's going to happen, boom, boom, boom. But then if you read it again and there's literally nothing else for you.
Right, because it's not fun to see, like, what Kaladin meets what he thinks is a wind spren, but at the end of the book it is revealed to be something else. But a big part of this book is like their relationship, being like, what the hell is this? They have the most boring conversations ever. They do not. It's like you just said, it's only interesting the first time because you're like, what is she? As soon as you learn what she is and you go back and read this is nothing. Because like, you could reread a book where the relationship is interesting and you might just enjoy rereading it and being like,
the characters.
Oh, right, I just like experiencing this relationship again, or I'm looking for like little bits of foreshadowing here and there. But there is no Brandon Sanderson, there is no foreshadowing. It's like, information is withheld from you, it is then revealed to you. It is only foreshadowing in the sense of like, the beginning of the book, there's like these brave knights, and we are introduced to like two particularly brave knights in this book. Like the first time I read this book, I was like, you get it right away what the fuck is happening. Like, I don't understand why this book is 1,300 pages long.
Because that's just more room for more mysteries that then get revealed.
Yeah, I guess.
And that's what makes a book.
Mysteries.
Endless details and puzzles. That's all that books are.
That's a good book.
Video game details and puzzles. That's what a story is.
Yep.
And okay, we'll talk about this in the second half of the book, and the magic system as a replacement for character development.
At least it's the magic system stuff is really not in this one. It is kept sort of vague, except for the lashings or whatever. And
then in the later books, everyone has it happening all the time. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Talk about power creep. So that was a big tangent. Yep. Kaladin is sad. He gets sold as a slave into what are called the Shattered Plains, which, as Mac explained earlier, is like a World of Warcraft area. And I'll put a map of it in the description, but it's like it's a big plain, and it's like someone shattered it, and there's like gaps in between these sort of like rock plateaus as like far as the eye can see, basically. And the gaps are like really deep chasms.
And Kaladin has the genius thought that he's like, I don't think this is natural. Really? Are you serious? They're called the Shattered Plains. And like it doesn't. The reason like shit like that happens in real life is because of erosion. There's no water on your planet, you fucking idiot. Like, obviously somebody did it. It wasn't...
Or something happened.
Man.
But
yeah, something happened.
But no one else thought about that because they're too busy, like, living... It's the same thing. Like, no one can have a thought that's, like, goes against the grain because they're, like, so in it, man. It's like... It's very like we live in a society sort of stuff. You know?
There's a moment where Kaladin, they're like running the bridge, and Kaladin, Gaz, like their captain or whatever, is like, if any of you lags behind, I'll string you up. And Kaladin is really tired carrying this bridge. Kaladin is a veteran from the army, and he has the thought he knew somehow if he stopped, he'd be beaten. What do you mean somehow? He said it! That he was going to string you up. And also, you're from the army. You know that.
You know how the world works.
Fuck.
Okay, so what's happening on the Shattered Plains?
Okay,
so after King Gavilar got killed by the assassin, the Parshendi retreated to these Shattered Plains, and because of like the Vengeance Pact or whatever, I don't know why everything has to be a pact. They can't just decide the country's going to war with people. But the country goes to war with these people because they're like, you killed our king. And so there's all these nobles, and the current king have like displaced. They have these army camps all around these Shattered Plains, and they occasionally have battles with the Parshendi. But also they go get their loot drops, which is every time Chasm Fiend, which are these big crab monsters, Godzilla crabs that live in the Shattered Plains in like the gaps in between in the cracks and everything. Every time they like lay an egg or die or something, there's like a big gem in the middle. And so all these nobles are like, we got to get them gems. And so they're all fighting these guys and getting the gems. And you're saying, oh, but how do they get across these chasms? Because they're the Shattered Plains. Well, you see, they have these people called Bridgemen that are like basically slaves and prisoners who carry these bridges, who like put them over the gap, and the noble army runs across them, and the Bridgemen pick it up and then put it across the next one, and that's how they're able to move large amounts of people across the Shattered Plains. And because all these people do is carry a bridge and they're slaves, they are very disposable. This is what Kaladin becomes. And so they're usually the first ones running into battle, and the Parshendi know that, like, hey, if I shoot these bridge people, they can't carry it, and so there'll be fewer guys for us to fight. So all the Parshendi shoot these, like, innocent, disposable people.
Right.
Which is compelling on some level. Like, oh, it's sort of like fantasy World War I, where just all these people put through the meat grinder for sort of no good reason, but also they're disposable, so
it's like cares. A perfect little awful problem with a perfect little awful solution. The problem is, well, one of the problems is that not every Bright Lord uses the bridges, but they literally all do use the bridges, because how the fuck else are you going to get across? They've already put the bridges down.
And the Parshendi don't use the bridges because they can just jump over it. Because they're, like, good at jumping. They can just jump over it. So, there's that.
It's also, I mean, it is, like, in our modern world, in war, for any of you who've played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, you would know this. There are machines that do this exact activity to replace So it's a fun fantasy idea to be like, well, obviously they can't have the machines because it's fantasy.
Well, I mean, you haven't read the future books, Mac.
No, they just figure out a machine. Well, okay, so all right, I have to talk about this. There are these machines in this world, and they're called soul casters. And essentially what they are is, what is that? It's like you can transmog pieces of. So in World of Warcraft, you can transmog equipment to make it look like other equipment, so you can like be blinged out. Now, what if you could do that to everything ever? Like, you can make a rock not there. You can make a rock food. Who fucking cares? Now, how come they couldn't just like make the rocks on the Shattered Plains into bridges that are there already?
I think it's because then the Parshendi will just come running. They won't have like permanent bridges.
So just put a bunch of dudes with like shields in front and just let the guy kneel down and make it and then run away.
You're asking great questions, man. So these soul casters, this becomes important in Shallan's
there's going to be a reason why they can't do that, and somebody's going to fucking say it.
So these things are they're like gem infused things, and it's like magic, and they can turn things into other things. So like that is why how Brandon Sanderson magics away any army logistics, so he never has to think about army logistics ever, because they never have to worry about food, because they can just turn rocks into food.
There's literally Kaladin remarks that like, oh, they look all like haphazard and roughshod. Must be the soulcasters that made them. And it's like, yeah, because you don't know what an actual army camp looks like or how it would operate, so you just did like whatever.
And they could just like make a rock air. Or they can make air into rock and just like make barracks. They can just like make buildings. And like, yeah, they're rare and only some people can use them. But like, there you go. There's your every problem ever solved. So Kaladin is a slave. He's a bridge man. And it's a hard life to be a bridge man because every day you're just running in and like half your unit dies. And
you don't get any downtime. You're still working. You're still doing other slave stuff in your downtime.
Yep. It's interesting because, like, as far as the books go, like, this is sort of the most, like, harrowing and violent and, like, dark they ever get.
Because they all get, like, magical Power Rangers powers, and then there's no problems ever.
Well, and then Kaladin can explain, like, actually, we should value human life. And everyone's like, oh, yeah. And then they stop using slaves for the bridge runs. Basically, Kaladin's whole arc in this section is, one, he maybe has magic powers, but we don't know. He maybe magically healed when he was sleeping. And some of the gems he was carrying with him were dark when he was finished sleeping.
Oh, and hang on, we didn't say this that might not mean anything to you if you don't know what we're talking about. But Brandon Sanderson makes it explicitly clear in the prologue with Seth that he's a wind runner, is that right? Or surge binder,
something
is that what
like
it is?
That surge binder, yeah.
He can like walk on walls and stuff. Who cares? In order to do that, he needs Stormlight, which he can suck out of,
explicitly in the paragraph.
Suck out of the like spheres because they are like light hallways and stuff. And so Kaladin does stuff. He heals and he maybe jumps far a little bit, and he's got money, right? Because he gets paid, like any working ass man should. Yeah, I don't know. Who cares?
He's a slave. He didn't get paid.
No, they do get paid, but he uses it to like make all his homies like boss up. Remember, he was like, I don't want to pay off my debt anymore. I want, and he pays off gas. They start draining. So right away you're like, oh, he's got the same powers that this other dude has, but maybe they're different. I think Kaladin is the Windrunner.
Okay, I think you're right.
Mistaken.
So basically, all his flashbacks are with his dad, who's a surgeon, and he's like, I can't deal. I hate that I can't save everyone and that people die. And Kaladin is sad about that. And that's basically his whole life and story and his only personality.
They have like the worst conversation of all time where he's like, there's only two kinds of people, those who kill and those who save. And Kaladin's like, what about the third kind? Those who kill to save. And it's like, oh. Who is reading this and being like, wow, this is really interesting stuff?
Mormons who can't read. They can read Harry Potter. They can read Harry Potter and they can read this, and that's all they can read. Or they're allowed to read, probably. And that's those are his flashbacks. And in the present with these Bridgemen, Kaladin's like, wait, what if we trained? Oh, what if we were good at this and then we wouldn't die? And so then he does that.
Which really should. It does work, which is frustrating. It really shouldn't, because the job is you're running in a straight line at men with machine guns. You can't get better at that job, but whatever.
No, but they like, I was never able to imagine how this works. They like somehow like turn the bridge
as like
to
a
like
shield.
block them, which because they like lift the bridge extra times when they're not on duty, so they can like block it.
But it's like impossibly heavy. Like people aren't like doing like 1 rep maxes in the gym like over and over again. Like there's no way they should be able to fucking do that.
Who knows? I think it's kept specific enough that you know what's going on, but vague enough that you can't quite imagine what it looks like. Like, because I don't know, because like, does everyone stay on one side? Do we like slide the bridge over? Like, but then wouldn't it fall in? But also like, do you know what I'm saying?
Are there, I was never under
How do they put the bridge down so it's across the gap if all of them are on one side?
Yes, and I was never under the impression that the bridge had handles. It's just resting on their shoulders. So how are you doing that? It is designed to be put down and picked up. If it's like a real bridge and there's just cross beams, they're just like beams you'd have to hold like this. How would you hold that to the side? Are you looking it up?
Yeah, I'm like, how? Because I never was able to. Oh, they like have. Yeah, it looks like they slide it over.
Slide it over the chasms.
Yeah, like fast enough so it doesn't fall in, but also depends how long
they're huge chasms. They would definitely fall in because nobody can be on the other side facilitating it.
Right. I think it's one of those things like. But then how do they put it down? I'm wondering, like, is there... I don't know if this is official art. I wonder if there's, like... It's so iconic, but there's no official art because I think he's like, well, would it work? It also only exists in this book because in the rest of the books, they leave this behind because it's a barbaric practice.
Right.
Bridge. No, so I think this is an illustration from the book.
Oh, like a pre-chapter illustration? So wait, put it in the Discord. There's like a picture of the bridge being turned sideways. I'm going to do
the Stormlight. No, it's not. They hold it horizontally the whole time.
Right. So how? They don't have any...
So how do they block it? Do they turn sideways? I don't know.
Oh, man.
A bridge over 30 feet long and 8 feet wide, slopes down the front and the back, has no railings.
So it's sloped, so it's even harder to hold.
It's like sloped, yeah. There's some men under the bridge. To move the bridge, the men hoist it up and step underneath it. Other men fill the middle slots between the... I don't think this would work. I think this is a fan illustration, maybe. Or is this from the book? I don't know.
They have... I have a picture here of...
They push it across.
Okay, so I have a different picture. I'll show you that it's the same... It's not... It's like slanted.
Oh, that's how... Oh, they like zigzag it that way.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's how they guard themselves. Okay. I guess that sort of makes sense.
Right, because they've run, yeah. It's still dangerous when they put it down, but they'd like try to time it for when they're reloading.
I guess, but then wouldn't they just wait until they put it down and then shoot the unarmed people?
I mean, yeah. I'm not going to defend the book. Is that what I'm sure that's...
So that's a bridge run. I don't know. We sort of know it maybe works, and it maybe would work, maybe not. And so the Kaladin makes like an army unit with all of them. He like makes the band together, and that's it.
And Brandon Sanderson is such a good writer that there's a big, thickly muscled guy, and he names him The Rock.
No, he names him just Rock. And he's from
Rock.
the mountains.
But it is a nickname.
But he's the cook.
He is the cook. Yeah, do you smell what The Rock is cooking? He's the worst. He's the fucking worst. I mean, you didn't think about that, did you? He's the fucking worst.
Oh, man.
It's a treat. The little things you discover in
this is literature.
Yes.
This will be read. This will be read along with Shakespeare.
Yes.
The other person is Shallan, and her story is she is hanging out with... Now, do you say Jasna or Yasna.
I say Jasna.
I also say Jasna. We'll say Jasna. She is the king's sister.
Yeah,
the king's sister, and
wait a minute, the old king's sister.
Oh yeah, so she's the current
Dalinar's
king's
brother.
aunt. So she's
Dalinar's sister.
Galavar's sister. No, Galavar's daughter. Right? Hold on.
Who is Dalinar to Galavar?
They're brothers.
And so him and Jasna are brother and sister, aren't they?
No, I think he's her uncle.
Oh, is that what it is?
So she's the daughter of King Galavar.
Okay, so
she was the previous king's daughter. She is the current king's sister.
Yeah. Okay, current king's sister.
And she's a heretic. She's edgy. She's like an academic, but also she doesn't believe in God. And everyone's like, "What? You don't believe in God? What the hell?"
I've never understood that trope in the world where God is so clearly and obviously exists.
I think it's hilarious of Brandon Sanderson because he also had like the weird atheist thing going on in the last Mistborn book, where like this, he makes this girl an atheist and makes her like really good at being an atheist. But then like in his world, he also makes God real. Like, if checkmate atheists, in my world, God is real.
The Vorin religion or whatever believes in the Almighty, and that's what she doesn't believe in, but she does believe in odium or whatever.
Or whoever is the god, yeah. Anyway, I just think that's such a funny move.
He always does it.
Yeah.
I don't
in
get
my
it.
world, God is real. So the atheist is wrong in my world. It's so funny. So Shallan, her thing is she's trying to like save her family from bankruptcy, and she's like, I'm gonna go convince Jasna to take me on as like a ward. I could study with her. And you think she's just gonna study with her, but really, Shallan is trying to do a burglary and steal Jasna's soulcaster because she is
one of the pure soulcasters, the one that can do anything to anything.
Yeah, and
some of them can only like make water cold, like some of them have like specific purposes, but like Jasna's can do anything.
Yep, and so if Shallan steals it or replaces it with a fake one, she'll and her family will be rich, and she'll save her family, and that's that whole plot. And Shallan is very witty,
yeah,
which is in I think Brandon Sanderson's world something to aspire to, and a mark of like good character. By any time someone says something to you, you're like, yeah,
and it's
annoying.
Always bad. Yeah,
it's always like not funny. It's also not funny. Witty.
No,
I think it's also hilarious as like a move as an author to be like, I'm going to write a witty character and then have other people call her witty. It's like you
can't say she's not witty.
You're complimenting yourself, like your own writing. Like it's if I wrote someone who I thought was funny in a book, and I had all the other characters call them very funny. Like,
and then you can be like, well, she's objectively funny. Textually, she's very funny. So shut up.
You made this whole thing. You did this whole thing. This is you. You make a guy who looks exactly like you. Said he's really hot. Oh my god.
Can we talk? Do you think? I mean, that's what he did with Elend. That's what he wanted to do with Elend.
Oh, he's a book.
He's a book.
Yeah, but he's a book. Brandon Sanderson wishes he was a book.
So what do you think of Shallan's plan?
I remember reading this, and I'm like, what a fun twist. This raises the stakes instantly, and I want to find out what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like, I guess you can do this. There's like, I don't know. I guess you can try.
Yeah. I think the better plan is to just become her ward. Like the much more successful and smart plan is that. And now you could argue that we meet her older brother's
plan.
Her older brother who like rips legs off of crabs or whatever in his free time, as we see in a flashback.
Like anger issues or something.
You could argue that it's like, well, kids came up with it, so like obviously it's going to be flawed. But like, I don't know.
Well, they're not
I'm the
kids.
one reading it.
They're like, she's like at least 16
and she's smart.
or 18 and smart, and she's just older brothers. So like, I don't know.
I just think it's like, it is a fun twist, but there would be no tension if she was just like, I want to be your ward, because that has resolved her first chapter. She becomes
because then Jazz is like, there's a little bit of conflict, and then Jazz is like, okay, that's fine, great.
Yeah.
But you have to stop wasting so much time being witty. You have to start
I
spending
know.
time being smart. It's like,
I just
my
don't.
God.
I think it would have been smarter for her to be the ward. Now I know this again. It's hard to talk about. Like she did something fucked up, like as we will find out later in this book, and she is perhaps bearing a terrible secret, and it's that she's like could be awesome, but instead chooses to be lame. I just feel like if you have a magic lightsaber, there's probably easier ways to solve your family's problems than this. You could be a bandit queen. You could be the queen of the bandits.
She's repressed it, Mac.
I guess, but I guess we never said this.
She's repressed it for plot purposes,
right? And
which I don't think it's. I don't know if it's revealed in this book. I think it's revealed in the second book.
Oh, in the second one.
Yeah. So spoilers. Sorry, everyone.
There's a shard blade.
Shallan has a terrible secret.
It's a blade. She has a shard blade. I don't care. I'm spoiling it. I don't care. Oh fuck! What was I just gonna say? I don't remember. Maybe it'll come back to me. This a big part of this book, of the Stormlight Archive as a piece of work, is it is Brandon Sanderson trying to explore various mental health issues.
Oh yeah,
and that's not me saying that. That is like an express purpose of the book. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, Kaladin has depression. Shallan has PTSD.
And she ends up having something else crazier later.
Yeah. And she, it is not. I'm not going to sit here and say Brandon Sanderson doesn't know what anxiety and depression is really like. But if you read these books, it screams to you that Brandon Sanderson does not know what those things are really like.
And not from a place of like you can't write about it if you haven't experienced it.
Of course.
But it also reads like he's never experienced any struggle ever. Yeah. And so if you write about people, like we had the same issue with like Mistborn, where it's like almost academic, or like I can see that racism is wrong, and I'm gonna write, and like if people just need to like be told that it's wrong, and then they will understand, or like, man, people can be depressed, and I'm gonna read. He's I think literally done this. He's like read the DSM-5, has had interviews with people who have depression, and then like gives Kaladin like those thoughts because he wants to be like, I want to have a character that's depressed.
But at such an accelerated rate, because Kaladin, there's a moment where Kaladin goes to commit suicide. Like, and it's supposed to be this dark, terrible moment. And a little magic girl walks him back from the ledge. Literally walks him back from the ledge. We haven't
talked about her at all.
Oh, yeah, we probably should.
So Kaladin has a little friend named Syl, and she's a wind spren that can talk. Oh, we don't know. She could be something else.
And so she saves Kaladin's life because she's like, you have something to live for. Like, you have to live and do this. That is not... It really irks me the way, like, Brandon Sanderson handles this. Because it would be different... Okay, Kaladin is so very clearly... he wants to have his Aragorn. Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings films, famously, is very different from the Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings books. Because in the books, as we've talked about... He is right off the bat, I'm going to be the king, I'm the greatest. He is like the Greek ideal of like a man. Like he is the perfect man. He is the hero. The movies make him a much more flawed, like reluctant king. A character who also like very obviously on screen has like depression and anxieties about his life and his role in the world. Those are not resolved in the first 20 seconds of him experiencing those feelings for the first time, because in real life, that is not how those feelings operate. Now, I know in The Way of Kings, there are moments where Kaladin is like, oh, I think he goes to commit suicide again towards the end of the book. I can't remember exactly. But he's struggling still with this. But the way a problem like suicide will be presented, and then a solution will instantly present itself, is like insane. For if you want to treat this like seriously in any way at all,
or it's like I think it's so like because Sanderson is such an outliner where he like you can see the outline is like Kaladin has a low moment, then he's fine, and then he's fine, and then he gets sadder, and then he has a low moment, and then he comes out of it. And so Brandon Sanderson will stick to his outline. Like, that's really what all this says. Like, if he's decided this character will be depressed, god damn it, he's gonna have symptoms, and god damn it, I'm gonna tell you about it. And then he's gonna have a suicidal ideation here, and then he doesn't die there, so he has to somehow not have it anymore, so then I have to write it so he doesn't have it anymore. And so it comes across like this weird, like, it feels like insensitive to both ways, because it feels like, because it feels like on one level it's so inescapable, it's like cartoonish, but also it's so easy to deal with, it's cartoonish. So it's crazy that he's able to pull off both sides of that spectrum,
and not in the way where it's like, where it's handled where you're like, wow, I should be more like Kaladin. It's like, no, I can't. I'm not a magic boy with a magic girlfriend. I can't.
Ugh. You know, I think not to joke about suicide, but if I was, on the brink and someone like Syl started talking to me, that'd make me do it faster.
Yep,
I'd be gone faster. She's just like Shallan, where like tries to be funny. She's like, I'm funny.
Yeah, that's all over this book. The King's Wit is introduced, and he's
that's right.
Worst.
The King's Wit is named Wit, and he has the same exact sense of humor as Shallan. It's like dumb wordplay. And
it's also, this is later, it's the stupidest, like, Cosmere connection in the universe, I think, is this Wit fellow. Yeah. I have no interest in that. Like, I know that's why people love this. I couldn't care less about that they're connected.
But Mac, if you don't care about that, why are you reading this?
Because we do a show. That's why I'm reading it.
So that's Kaladin. He's depressed. Then Dalinar's the other main character, and his whole thing, he's the king's brother. He's trying to unite the Alethi, because the king says, brother, find the words that will unite them, or whatever he's fucking said. And Dalinar's reading this old book, and he's like, I'm going to make Alethkar great again, when men were men, and warriors didn't run after jewels, because jewels are, like, for girls. He doesn't really say that. He's framed as, he's framed as he's doing a noble thing, but it is very funny, where he's like, we've lost the plot. We're here going after money. We can't be drinking. We have to stop partying. We have to, like, get back to the capital and run this country, goddammit. And he's the only, and everyone's like, dude, calm down.
Yeah. Because every time there's a storm, he, like, goes into a catatonic state, and he's like, the world is ending.
Oh yeah, he has like fits during storms, when the storms pass over, and the storms are so crazy. I don't think we've mentioned this. The storms are so crazy. No one can be outside. They're like super violent. They scour the landscape.
They think there's like monsters in them. There's like all this
folklore and stuff. But Dalinar has these visions of like this old guy telling him like, the world's gonna end, you must unite them. And he's like, tell me more. And the guy's like, oh, goodbye. And everyone thinks that like Dalinar's a big pussy because he keeps fainting during the storms. And that's like a big part of this plot too.
Yep.
And Dalinar's like, I'm not gonna duel because we're in war. And the old book that I like says not to duel, there's war. And his son's like, Dad, everyone thinks you're lame because you won't duel anyone. I've had to duel people on your behalf. Dalinar has a son named Adolin.
Yeah, whatever.
And he's like a fuck bro, but he's like a fuck bro, great fighter with a heart of gold.
Yeah, he is.
That's that character.
And again, Brandon Sanderson has never met anybody like this. Like, seriously, he literally never has, because they do not exist at Brigham Young University. So
he
doesn't know how to write a
fuckboy. They wouldn't
talk
talk to him for any length of time.
No, he doesn't know how to write a fuckboy. So he can't. He doesn't. He thinks fuckboys are like, they're good. Like they're.
He thinks they're like they're just nice, handsome people.
Yeah, and he's gonna read his girlfriend an epic poem about how he's not sleeping with this one girl anymore. It's like, yeah, that's how that works, buddy.
And so that's sort of where we're at. Kaladin got these bridge. I mean, I think exactly at the halfway point, Kaladin does this new form with the bridge, but he actually gets there too soon with the bridge and actually ruins their assault, and more people die, and like it's his fault. And so he sort of realizes that like maybe if everyone doesn't do the same thing, things go badly. Like, maybe if you thought one step ahead, but who knows?
Guy who is a military veteran did not think that that one squad doing something completely different and not telling anybody else was going to end poorly.
And Dalinar is trying to figure out what's going on with his dreams. Shallan is trying to steal the Soulcaster.
And that's seriously it. Shallan's, like, she's barely in this. Because
she's witty. That's her thing.
Yeah, it cuts to her for comedic relief. That is actually what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Also, wait, there's one interlude.
We're talking about the interstitials.
Okay.
Last thing.
Okay.
There's some interstitial sections that sort of take place in different parts of the world, which I sort of liked. I like that, like, this world is like different in different places.
Yeah, but for a book like so tedious, it's like, I don't care about this guy who lives in a lake. I just don't care.
Yeah, there's like a really shallow big lake in the middle of the continent, and there's like a city there, and these traders like meet them, and then they also go to the other side of the world in a place called Shinovar, where Seth is from, and they're like, oh, there's grass here and other animals that we've never seen before. And it's interesting. They think the grass is holy, so they don't step on it or something. Or it's the opposite. They don't step on rock, or who knows.
I think it's that they don't step on rocks.
Yeah, which is crazy because the whole planet's rocks except for the one place they live.
You know, like our planet.
Mm-hmm.
There's rocks fucking everywhere. Whatever.
But the main part of the interstitials is we keep following Seth, the assassin from the first chapter. We learn that he is truthless, which means he doesn't have control over his life. And I thought this was, when I first read it, fairly compelling. It ends after this book completely. He has this, like, the oath stone, and whoever has the stone is in charge of him. He has to listen to whatever they say. So, like, some guy at a bar gets it, and he's like, kill my friend.
Yeah.
But eventually, the guy in the bar gets assassinated because he's a doofus. And I think where we left off halfway through, some mysterious old man is like, I want you to kill every king of Ja Keved, which is the country next to Elethkar.
Which is
like,
where
the neighboring country. Shallan is from.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And that's sort of where we are. Do you have anything else to add plot-wise?
I don't understand, like, if you know, so Danilo, I have not read these. There are 10 Knights Radiant, is that correct? Like, the beginning of the book, there's 10. But in this, are there 10, or are there just 4?
I don't quite exactly remember what happens to all of them. I think some of them are, like, in the world, and some of them have died, and some of them we meet.
Oh, I mean, like, the reincarnation, like, Kaladin is, like, our main characters are obviously
the order of
again.
the Knights Radiant. It's revealed,
yeah.
like, what that is. Like, that's basically anyone, spoilers. It's not really a spoiler. No. The Knights Radiant are basically anyone who has magic powers. Like the highest level of magic powers. So not everyone. More people can get magic powers as the series continues. That's not really a spoiler, because duh. But the people who, like, achieve the high, there's, like, different tiers of the powers you can have, and I think the ones who have the highest level are, like, the Knights Radiant.
So in this book, for example, Seth has the highest power.
I think so. He's, like, achieved it somehow.
Yeah. Okay. So
one of the higher levels, so he can do all his crazy magic power stuff.
So I don't understand then why. So, like, Brandon Sanderson, you have to imagine he knows how this ends, right? Because he's a meticulous planner. I don't understand why you would have a character as interesting as Seth is in this book, and then just, like, make him one of the fellas. Like, he's almost set up. There's no antagonist in this book.
Yet.
Whatever. I mean,
the antagonist is the system, man. The antagonist is depression.
But he is sort of set up like, oh, is he going to be, like, hunting them? I just don't. I have, like, nothing to say, because it's just, I have so many thoughts in my head about how to make this more interesting, but that's useless because it's.
I think it requires. It's crazy because I think it's, like, clearly Brandon Sanderson has a good imagination. Like, this, say what you want about it.
You can't say he does not.
World
that
he has concocted in his head based out of a mix of all the nerd stuff he's consumed in his life and his religion. And he's sort of made a book out of all of that. But I think like you need like one more level of like self-reflection.
I totally agree.
To like,
especially if this is supposed to be the magnum opus.
Mm-hmm. And this is the most like honed book in the series, which is crazy.
I think
some people like the second one better, but I think the rest of I don't know. Yeah.
People are pretty down on, especially the last two that have come out. I think more so
the fourth one's a fucking slog.
Yeah.
It's
I
crazy.
and I think I really wonder, because I have Brandon loves so in Mistborn, I'm going to spoil Mistborn here. There seems to be an antagonist. When I say antagonist, I mean like a dude on the ground trying to fuck shit up. And there's
who are they in conflict against?
Right. Like actively in conflict against. Like Sauron is literally the antagonist, but you don't really think about him ever. You think about like, holy shit, there's like a spider here now, and oh my god, they got captured by these people, and oh my god, Pippin looked at the thing, and
then like beat by beat.
And Brandon Sanderson loves to have the antagonist be whatever dark god is in control of the planet, because that's how the Cosmere works. Is there's like these forces.
Every planet has like these forces on it, and which one is it going to be on this one?
And do people think that's interesting? Because I think that's deeply boring. To just have the bad guy be like the god of evil, like that sucks.
Well, I think I think what theoretically makes it interesting is that it's a specific shade of evil. Like in Mistborn, it was like ruin, so it wants to like destroy things. And on this planet, it's like different, so it's different. Like good is on Mistborn was like preservation, which like is a force, not like something that's good or bad. But it's also because we talked about the last one, like just because you call it something different doesn't mean it's not good and bad. I don't really want to talk about what the battle is in this series right now. That's revealed in the later books, but it's like that basically.
Except it's like, I mean, I do sort of want to talk about it because I think this is way stupider than the.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do, listeners. If you have any interest in reading
I can't
these
imagine
books,
you've gotten this far and want to read it. But.
I would just say from here on out, for the rest of the episode, we'll be talking about stuff that happens in the rest of these books. Because, one, we may not get to the rest of them, and we want to talk about it right now. Yeah. So we will talk about it right now.
Stay hard, everybody.
Stay hard. We are continuing to talk about it right now. Okay. So
odium and honor.
Yes.
I think the idea of honor being the good force is stupid.
Because I think he's also going for with preservation. I think based on some of I don't know if it happens in the third book or the second one, but like maybe honor isn't always good. Like it's like a force. Like you can be too honorable and that has drawbacks. That is also the most basic take you can have about anything.
That's what I mean. It's like so odium,
it's one step beyond good is good and evil is evil. It's like, well, maybe good can sometimes be bad in certain contexts. It's like it's like not what a 5-year-old thinks. It's like what a 12-year-old
exactly
thinks.
I think that's literally what we said in Mistborn. And if you don't know odium, I don't really hear anybody say this like ever.
Hate, right?
Yeah, I just general or widespread hatred or disgust directed towards someone as a result of their actions. So, for example, hating somebody for like being too honorable and like not getting involved in something when they should have, and that would have been the outcome. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of like, I guess odium can be good sometimes too. Except it's like then there's no, if everything is then
what's the conflict?
There's no conflict. And it's not, there's no conflict in like Martin sense where it's like, oh, all these characters are like gray, and it's like, no, there's a conflict the whole time, and it's who's going to be the fucking king, and we know that going in. But what is the conflict here?
Because it's the conflict. It's like they want to take over the planet, or like not be, or like take over the universe or something. But also, like, it doesn't matter if like Honor is doing it or Odium is doing it. You know, like
who cares?
It depends what side you're fighting on. But also, like, if they're both equally complicated, like, is it just like are we trying to fight against them? It would be interesting. I don't know if this comes later, but like this may be coming in the last book. I don't know. Like if the humans decide, fuck both of y'all, we're gonna kill you. But that's not what happens. They're all like against the Odium. Well, I mean, it's revealed. I don't know if you got this far because Honor is dead.
Right. Yes. That's why the Spren exist. Isn't that right? The Spren are like...
So the god, that Honor god doesn't exist, and so then Odium is like trying to take over the world still, and the people have to stop him.
I also have a big problem, and this is like, don't call them Honor and Odium. That sucks. Just give them a name, and then like the Greeks weren't calling their gods.
Technically, they have names because they were people before, and the Honor and Odium are just the shards that those people inhabit.
But that's what they're referred to in the book, right? As those fucking... Yeah.
Well, but like the guy who is Odium like has a name, just like the guy who was Ruin was like a guy. You know?
Had red hair or whatever.
Right.
I still think about that sometimes, and it makes me laugh. Just he's like some ginger dude was like Hitler.
And he's like, I'm gonna destroy you, Vin.
And also like I just need to talk about this now because I didn't realize when I first read this I hadn't read Mistborn. We're going to talk about it in the next episode too. Hoyd is the King's Wit, and he's in Mistborn.
Yep.
And as we read, when Danilo read to me the secret history, there's like these world hoppers. Kelsey will also be in it, I know. But Hoyd
does he come back in the last book? Is that what have you spoiled yourself for that?
I believe he's not mentioned by name, but he is in these.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Like, he is. I forgot.
He's like a priest or whatever.
Crazy. I remember that because it's like a priest with scars on his arms. And when I first read this, I had not read Mistborn.
Yeah, and it's sort of
that's
weird.
Crazy.
Like these connections are weird because so Hoyd is here, and what purpose does that serve other than being like? Whoa!
That's Mac. That's the purpose of every detail. Like, there's nothing. I think it's Brandon Sanderson was criticized for lack of character depth. He doesn't know how to write a character.
So we put the characters in everything. They have to be deep.
So he's like, then this book. Then okay, I need character growth in this book, so I'm gonna make one. I'm gonna give them all mental health problems because there's a book here on my shelf called the DSM-5 that literally has a list of character traits, and then I'm going to give them a magic system that is a self-help magic system, which the more that they like grow as people, the better their magic powers are, and it's literally explicitly said on the page. And those are my characters, and the rest of the book is just me going like, oh, look at that. Oh, I made up this thing. I made up this thing. Look at this. I made up this thing. And that's what we talk about, is the onslaught of details. Like, it doesn't add up to anything because it's like this soulless formula towards what end? Like,
it's to get you to read all of them so you feel like you're in the loop.
Consume them. That's why I will give my other spiel like I did last time. Brandon Sanderson is not an author. He's a content creator. Because the whole point of reading the books is to find out what happens next, which gets you to read the next book, which gets you to read the next book. And they're written so simply because they work well as audiobooks, so you can listen to them in the background and not really have to know what's going on. And he says everything 30 billion times, so no one's ever lost, no matter how little attention they pay. And so he can sell you his first drafts for $60 or whatever it is.
It is. Somebody might draw the comparison and be like, well, Marvel has cameos and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but I would argue, I'm not even a Marvel guy, but I would argue that in those instances, Hoyd is not from this planet. What the fuck does he care? Like, he's like one of these dudes who just like hops from planets to planet. So like,
and the thing about Marvel is like, Marvel is also bad now. Like, they've made too much of it. Like, that's the point.
Yeah.
And also, like, when it was good, It still wasn't for some people, and it was the product of a lot of people working together, not a rich Mormon nerd. Like,
and it was still annoying. Like the cameos when Marvel movies were good, were still like, oh my god, because that's just here so that fucking audience members should be like, whoa, look at that, whoa. And we spent too damn long saying we can't yuck people's yum, and it ruined everything. Look at the fucking world. So fuck you. Yes, we can yuck people's yum.
Oh, yep. So that's the first half of The Way of Kings. We're going to read the second half for next time.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we continue with the series. Could be fun. Could be
horrendous. Could be fun. I think it does spark fun discussion.
I think I worry that all the books have the same problems. We're going to end up repeating ourselves a bunch of times. So maybe we find some way to do it that is not... we don't keep making the same points with Brandon Sanderson, because I don't want to toot our own horn. I think we figured him out.
I think so.
I think that's like we've got it. Like there's nothing else going on. Nothing against the man. Nothing against people who like these books. Like, you're allowed to like what you like. Blah 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 blah.
Well,
but this is what they are. Like, there's nothing else going on.
It just excites me that like this is the biggest fantasy thing and it's not finished yet. So the idea of like when one drops to be like, drop everything, we're reading the new, does make me excited. But the thought of having to read 5 of these to get there does not make me excited. But who knows?
Yep. Who knows? I mean, I do know, because I've read 4 of them.
True, you do know, but you don't know fully anymore.
I guess I don't know what happens at the end. I haven't really cared about spoilers, but I also haven't like sought them out.
No, me neither. Because the names, just when I see a spoiler, it's like a bunch of names I don't know, and so it's sort of just like it just.
Another point is, I think this is why the community is so like sacrosanct around spoilers, because if you know what's going to happen, there's no other reason to read them.
Yep.
That's really it.
Yeah, it's the same. Any piece of media that relies solely on the reveal is not good.
Yep, because then if you know the reveal, there's no other reason to read it.
Like Game of Thrones, I keep using Game of Thrones as an example. The first Game of a Song of Ice and Fire novel, A Game of Thrones, is still really good even if you know how it ends. Same thing with all of them. There's a big reveal in all of them. I think they're into like way, and I think we should do them at some point. Because how crazy would it be for Hardcover Hooligans to be the first podcast to review The Winds of Winter when it comes out?
I'm gonna fly to Albuquerque with a gun, and we're gonna get breaking news. We're gonna read whatever state it's in. Hardcover Hooligans is gonna be reading
first draft.
Winter.
He swindled us a first draft of the book.
We will be reading it on the car ride back to our headquarters.
Yeah.
With the police chasing us, and we'll finish. We'll record an episode. We'll be arrested.
And how perfect will that be?
That'll be the end of the episode. We'd still only get like 20 downloads or whatever we get, but it'd be really good.
And speaking of end of the episode, I think that's where we are. Danilo, do you have any final thoughts?
Nope. It's a whole lot of nothing.
Good.
I think it's, if you want to turn your brain off and just be like, wee, great. I think it's perfect for that. But I don't think there's anything besides that. In the ways that it is bad is fascinating in the same way that Mistborn was.
But they are. It is the same. Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, the same. I wonder
it's like more honed. It's like better, but the problems are the same exact problem.
Which is interesting. It is interesting that it's somehow better, but also worse, but also the same. I don't know how you did that, but
I don't know who needs a PhD topic, but we're not doing it.
No, we're not doing it. All right, everybody. Well,
all right. Well, if you like the show, please tell your friends. Review. Us on Spotify. Give us reviews. If it's funny, we'll read it on the air. I'm gonna check for reviews right now. Do we have any new ones that are funny?
Oh, let me check that. I'll check Apple Podcasts. We do ever. I'm not sure we ever read Peyton MC2's review. On the show. Sorry, Peyton, if you're still listening. She said, I did not expect to get slightly addicted to these two very smart and funny people reviewing books I've read and chuckling at their spot-on takedowns of each book's flaws. But I did. Came for Fourth Wing, stayed for ACOTAR, and am now fully hooked and moving on to Mistborn. And I don't know if that ruined everything for you, Peyton, but you're still listening. I really appreciate it. Lest you think they only talk about the negative aspects of each book, they also celebrate what's great about the books too, so it's nicely balanced. Highly recommend 5 stars from Peyton MC2.
Thank you.
I also said she. I didn't mean that. I meant to say they. So thank you, Peyton MC2. Please leave us a review on your podcast platform of choice. It helps. It helps more than you know. And it's also nice to know that there are people out there. Sometimes this show feels a little bit like screaming into a vacuum, but...
And this may be our longest episode to date.
Hey, shouts out. We're back
Something about Brando Sando brings it out of us.
I know, I
brings
like
out
it.
those dogs.
And see, that's why I'm like, maybe fuck it. Maybe we'll just do all of them. And then we can do Tress of the Emerald Sea next.
No.
What if that book is great, though? Because it's like by itself.
It'd be good for kids, but like
Yumi and the Nightmare Painter or whatever. I don't know.
Okay, everyone, we're gonna go be reading the second half of this book. You don't have to.
You don't. You probably should
sleep well at night. All right, bye everyone. Stay
hard.
Oh my God, he's tired.